and system integration, as well as development and implementation of comprehensive strategic technology initiatives. Let's.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to just give a second to describe my background a little bit, because I think it helps provide context. Oh. I'm muted on the box. Perfect. Wow. Okay. A little bit different voice. Some different. Okay. So, a little bit of background on myself. I'm about 20-year veteran in the IT field. I've done everything from working for small businesses to enterprise companies. I've worked in network administration, system administration, management, executive management, and now at Aureon as well. So also the gaming and casino industries as well. So a lot of diverse background, a lot of different problems that I've faced and with teams have overcome. A little bit about Aureon. So Aureon started back in the 80s when the mom and pop bell sort of broke up. Regulations were deregulated and private businesses were able to offer services. And so about 100, a little small fact here, I don't know how many people know this, but independent phone companies, Iowa has the #1 total. I think it was 130 at one point, now it's down to about 125. So all these little phone companies were out throughout Iowa, and they had to come up with a way to meet carriers. So they came up with an idea to come together and form a centralized location. That location ended up being a company called Iowa Network Services. So that delivery method, that solution worked for a number of years. Of course, as technology changes and people change, phone usage, cell phones came on board, some more regulation and deregulation. All those things afforded to have Aureon, or at the time, Iowa Network Services, change their paradigm. So about 2000-ish, they started acquiring companies. Alliance Technologies was one of them. And then throughout the 2000s, pretty much until last year, we've started to acquire different companies. So we've acquired contact centers or call centers. We've acquired different technology companies. We've acquired a PEO, professional employment organization, and staffing companies. So we've got a diverse portfolio. And that were rolled up last year, actually 2016, we changed our name from INS, a family of companies, down into Aureon. So our slogan is, we enable clients to do what they do best. And to that, we formed the business units that we have. So we have HR, which is, like I said, a professional employer organization. So what that does is allows small companies to aggregate or get the benefits of having a larger workforce. So you can actually be employed by 2 different companies. You can be employed by your company, and then you can be employed by Aureon. And what that allows you to do is, obviously we can abstract the services from paying, payroll, but benefits are really where you add your value there. So having that in there. Technology, of course, we have telecommunications, dedicated internet access, managed services, so lots of different services there. Contact center, 24/7 contact center, so you basically can have your call center or have a call come into your business, and it's routed to us, and we take it and address it from there. Consulting, you have a different problem or a business need, and you need a project for a specific length. Of course, we are able to handle that through contractors or supplying you with contractors from project delivery, technology, you name it, we can probably provide it. And my favorite is shared services. Of course, that's where I'm from. So what we do is we've abstracted, obviously we combined about, I think, 9 different companies in that time frame. And of course, every single one of them had a technology, finance, marketing, sales teams. And so we were able to abstract those and put them into its own division called shared services. And so I sit on the shared services side, And I am now, as Molly had said, part of an organization that is 800 plus, and I provide the IT support. Not every single division inside of my company requires the same services. They don't require the same strategy, but they all require protection. So I think it adds just a little context to exactly, the challenges that we are facing. I guarantee you are facing on them on some face. So, I mean, we supply products, services, and people, all those different things. And then, of course, you have PII and PHI information on top of it. So, background, it's always good to give a context of what we're trying to talk about today. These are from Gartner, Verizon, Data Breach Information Survey, a lot of different things about ransomware. The biggest thing, and I enjoy talking a little bit about headlines, so I'm just going to read a couple of them from last year. In April of 2017, Erie County Medical Center in Buffalo, New York, a hospital suffered ransomware that took down 6,000 computers. It lasted more than 3 months, and the estimated recovery cost was near $10 million. This one was headlined, "Held in Contempt." June 27th of 17, a DC law office by DLA Piper was hit with ransomware. After weeks of disruption, millions lost in business and recovery costs, and some very bad publicity, they were fighting the NoPetya malware. And then off the air, this is an interesting one here, which was San Francisco PBS station. So they have both a television side and a radio side. And the quote that I had from this one was, it's like we've been bombed back 20 years in technology-wise. It was one of the largest ones, and they were fighting ransomware as well. Brigham County in Idaho, their 911 dispatch service was shut down due to ransomware. And then now, one of the largest payouts back in 2017 at the time was a South Korean web hosting provider. They agreed to pay 397 Bitcoins at the time. It was valued at about $4 million. You take that times whatever Bitcoin is today, and you're going to have multiples of that. It infected 153 different servers and about 3,400 of their clients. Attacks are not decreasing, they're increasing, and they're also evolving. So businesses are seeing more malicious emails flooding their inbox. And according to a Verizon Data Breach Investigations report, 2/3 of malware are installed through email attachments. Instead of relying on phishing to distribute the biggest ransomware attacks in 2017, we saw another attack through RDP, or remote desktop sessions, through WannaCry and Petra, NoPetya. Those vulnerabilities were exploited, and you can't even imagine the damage that was caused. I listed off just a couple of them. So exploits are happening. Obviously, we have new exploits happening as well through Intel's disclosure of the flaws that they have in their processor. So now we're going one layer below, which is below the software layer into the hardware layer, and that is the Spectra and Meltdown flaws that are in there. So now we're trying to patch them with software on top of it, but it's always evolving, and the infection vectors are ever changing. One big thing in here, so the more than 400 businesses are targeted by BEC scams every day. Business email compromise scams. That's a big one out there. One that I like to talk about is the W-2. So since it's tax seasons right now, everybody's probably working or already produced their W-2s. But one of the attacks through social engineering is to call into and pretend to be or impersonate a high-level employee, and then try to get payroll information to be able to get information from their W-2s to go and file tax returns for those employees. So another way of, attack vectors ever changing. So a little bit about malicious software. So I keep on talking about malware. I want to make sure that everybody understands what malware is. It's a program or application that has malicious intent. It can be a virus. It can be just a program that has ulterior motives than what has actually been installed. So, they can just annoy you, they can steal your data, they can damage your company, they can do lots of different things. So where we've come, as you can see all the way back, and I think 1984 is the first time that I was able to grab some information. It started in the 80s and 90s. Malware was mainly viruses. They were there to delete, steal your company's data. Those were their main goals. And the millennium crossed. As you can see, they started picking up and the exponential curve started hitting. They were more targeting internet and email worms. The I love you email, if anybody remembers that one, was big out there. Again, it was still about damaging, changing files, changing structures. Rootkits were discovered in 2005. Of course, the Nigerian lottery and the prince were trying to give out money back in 2006. Botnets were starting to form at that time from all the different viruses that were out there. And now we hear words like zero-day, exploits, ransomware are all coming for us at any one time. From Gartner's Q1, they show, let me just talk a little bit about this. As you can see, we are hitting right now, just in 2018, 700 million different malware is out in the net. That's just till this quarter. So, I mean, we're already surpassing 2017. So it's becoming much easier for people to want to be criminals. You can go out there, just like you can purchase email as a service, now you can purchase malware as a service and do DDoS as a service. So there's lots and lots of things that are coming at us every day to try to get and steal our data. For Q1 of 2017, the biggest delivery for email was ransomware. Ransomware is rampant. Email is still the #1 delivery vehicle for most malware. Disguising malicious attachments as fake invoices. I don't know if anybody's seen a fake invoice yet, but those are fun to deal with, let me tell you. They are by far some of the most prevalent ones out there, and people take the bait quite often. So who's doing that? Oh, one other thing here. Ransomware. The demand for this year alone is $2,022. Last year, it was about $600. So there's an increase in total dollars. I had a slide that from last year showed it was $600. So it becomes quite a step and a leap for the ransoms themselves. So they're not getting less in money. They're getting more and more aggressive as well. I think some of the good stats over here, 89% of the businesses hit by ransomware had 10 or fewer or more employees. There was another stat on the first page that said 81 or 69% of the employees had less than that were affected by ransomware, malware, were 1,000 or less employees. So it doesn't matter who you are, big or small, you will be affected. So how are they getting in? This is something that we've been seeing at Aureon as well. Is the biggest way that phishing campaigns happen is through actual tricking of domains. So switching of a 1 for an L or an O for a 0. Those things are prevalent, and it's really hard for just somebody who's used to seeing things on a daily basis recognize that before they enter in their username or password or click on a link or do something else that will infect them. So a defense strategy has been to register a whole bunch of domain names that are exactly like yours, about 300 on average for enterprise companies, but that dwarfs what is actually being done, 20-to-1 difference in what people are trying to do. So Microsoft's got, if they've got 300 domains, 20-to-1, they've got 6,000 different domains out there that are trying to impersonate Microsoft, if not more. So who's trying to do this to us? Well, there's many different containers that you can put them into, but for me, I like to do it in just this way, straightforward. So hacktivism is somebody who really wants to cause disruption in networks. They think they're trying to do good for their organization or for their cause. It's retaliation. It's, hey, we're going to take down your site because of X, whatever X may be. It could be your belief, your company stance, your brand, your product, what you sell. It can be anything. Criminal, I think I've been talking a lot about what criminals do. They really are trying to get and monetize it as much as they can, either through the stealing of data, through the ransoming of your data. They are just there to personally gain for financial purposes. Insider threat, big one here. To me, insider threats are ones that go unchecked. I think we have a lot of different strategies for a lot of these different types of threat actors, but the insider one, it could be a disgruntled employee, it could be somebody who is just there, biding their time. To me, these are the ones that we have to figure out the best strategy to do. Is it data loss protection strategies so that you have some type of monitoring on them? But to me, it is a big threat there. Espionage, of course, they're here to steal technology, policies, government secrets, intellectual property, weapons, strategy, all those things are really tied up into espionage. It's usually backed hackers through nation states, but they are very, very prevalent. Terrorism, exactly what it sounds. To me, these are more focused on the SCAD devices. They want to take over infrastructure such as nuclear power plants, utility stations, water plantations, those types of things to really cause disruption. And then warfare is really about taking advantage of being able to disrupt communications during a time of war. So we're not really seeing the last one, I hope not, but we are seeing different flavors of the first five. So what's my data worth? To me, you can see credit cards go for anywhere from $5 to $30, depending upon the total mag stripe swipe that they have. Is it just the 16 digits? Is it, what do they actually have? So it can go anywhere from $5 to $30 per credit card number. The CVV or CV1 definitely adds information in there. I saw recently that Social Security numbers, depending upon what they are, so the newer Social Security numbers are less money, but the minimum cost for them is about $15. Healthcare information, this is your personal information. It can go for around $110. I found this very interesting. Netflix, airline points, hotel chains, those types of things are very valuable. They are probably some of the most valuable besides actual bank account information. But they go for anywhere from $20 to $450, and then airline points you can see as well, hotel chains, but still very, very, very expensive. Bank accounts, for as little as $100, you can buy a bank account that has a very low limit. For very high accounts, you can get as much as 6% of the actual bank account, and then the rest going to whoever purchases it. Corporate emails, something that's highly valued because, again, it gives you validity to be able to start a phishing campaign. Go for about $500 per. So one thing that I also looked at this year was IBM's 12th annual cost of data breach study. They had about 419 different companies in 17 industries across 11 countries. They studied, different overall costs. I've heard from my research, it's been anywhere from $1.26 million to $3.62 million for a data breach. The average stolen information, again, goes for, on average right there is about $158. I did the math. The average breach can get about 24,000 records out of your company. So how do you calculate a breach? There's many different components to actually calculating a breach and many different methodologies. So unexpected or unplanned losses of customers following the breach, called the churn rate. The size of the breach, so the total number of records. The time it takes to identify and contain the breach is another point to consider when you're calculating the total estimate of the breach. Detection and escalation of the breach incident. The post costs, so including all the time to notify the victims, to get everything ready with your brand, those are big things to consider when calculating the total cost of a breach of your data. Secure culture brings to mind. So let me back up a little bit before I start talking about secure cultures. 5 ways to succeed at data protection. Develop a secure culture or a security culture. Always be up to date. Protect. DR and BCP, or disaster recovery and business continuity plans, are critical. And then focus on the people. So secure culture is something that's huge for me. It is something that I try to instill in any organization that I go into, and I recommend it is in every organization that you guys are a part of. It needs to be top-down approach, so it needs to be every single employee, from CEO or board all the way down. They have to feel like security belongs to everybody. everyone. So focus on security awareness. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but security awareness, on onboarding, are you giving your employees some type of training on cybersecurity, how you handle incidents? Those types of things are going to be critical. Security in everything you do. So it should be in every product, it should be in every process, it should be in every operation that you do. So when you're doing a project, where do you actually bring information security into that? To me, it's all the way at when you're identifying a vendor, if you're going to be outsourcing it. You need to start asking them questions about their IT policies, their cybersecurity policies. So lots and lots of different things here. And the biggest thing to me is how do you instill that? How do you actually grow that from an employee? Because everybody would be scared. I clicked on this. I don't want to tell anybody that I've clicked on this link, entered in my credentials. So it's really about recognizing and rewarding the employees for doing the right thing. Too many times have I been, sitting and talking with somebody saying, did you click on the link? No, I didn't click on the link. Well, how did this email get out? So those types of things definitely do happen. So it's figuring out the best strategy for your company on how to make them feel rewarded for doing the right thing. Another thing, well, it's really first in my book, beyond actually the onboarding of the employee and making sure that they get some cybersecurity training, is really creating a cybersecurity policy. So, what types of things are you trying to accomplish with a cybersecurity policy? Obviously, you can see it's a document that articulates really what we're trying to defend, the IT assets, how we're going to do that. How much data are we going to back up? Are we going to have automated backups? Are we going to do encryption? How are we going to update patches? Or are we going to do updates and patching? What is a incident? Who's going to be enforcing the policy? What happens if a policy is violated? Security training and awareness should be a part of it. Incidents, so an incident response plan should be a part of it as well. Admin rights, thinking about that. What are tactics for acceptable use of your company's resources? So if you give them an iPad, an iPhone, or an Android device, or any endpoint out there, so what is an acceptable use for that? Password management. So how are you actually protecting the things that you're trying to do? So one of them is by providing passwords, of course. So all those different things can be a part of a cybersecurity policy. Patching. I don't know how many people here patch. Does everybody patch? Are you good at patching? Do you say? So this is I believe this one's from Gartner from last year. They were just sampling 7 different industries. It was public administration, manufacturing, and a couple other financial, those types of things. As you can see from, it's very hard to see, but here's week 0. So when a vulnerability is identified, to really getting compliant really happens in about week 7. So you are vulnerable, or these industries and these companies potentially were vulnerable to a variety of things during that time. So patching is critical in my mind, and having an effective patch management policy is going to be a key to protecting your data. You can see 6,000 new vulnerabilities are happening. I don't think that should be a year. That should actually be a day. I apologize. There's plenty of vulnerabilities happening. And everybody's on different patch cycles. So you've got Microsoft patches coming out, you've got Adobe patches coming out, you've got Apple patches coming out, and they all have different varieties and frequencies from themselves. So what are the benefits of it? Obviously, we can talk a lot about it. Benefits of patch management, security is probably the most obvious benefit. It allows for us to make sure that we have the latest code, the latest software to protect us from any vulnerabilities that may be mentioned. Another major benefit is productivity. Because of the latest patches that are out there, you may get a new feature, or it may run faster. The software, and then of course the possession of the latest and greatest is a big thing for me as well. So making sure that you have the latest and greatest software always allows for the best productivity and the most secure run environment. Essentials to patch management. This is where it gets into the actual cost side. So everything that I've talked about up until this point has really been just people and time to identify and talk about defining what a cybersecurity policy is. But now you can get into patching and patch management. There are multiple ways to do it. You can do it if you have just a few computers. Microsoft updates, very, very straightforward. But then what do you do about all the software that's on there? You know, Adobe's been pretty good about rolling out an automated solution as well. So there's lots of tools out there to do that. Now, if you want to go a little bit further into the actual essentials, you will need to have a patch management solution. Be able to scan all of the devices across your network. For Aureon, we are multiple states, multiple locations. We have remote workers. We have a hybrid environment, which means that we have data on premise and in the cloud. So we needed a comprehensive patch management solution. And that's what we have. So we provide a comprehensive scanning of all of our different devices, be it network, database, application, endpoint, you name it, we are scanning it. And then ease of deployment. So being able to figure out a patch schedule and communicating that to everybody. Again, a policy, a patch management policy should be part of your cybersecurity policy that says, hey, if a 0-day comes out, I need to patch today at midnight, or depending upon the criticality of the vulnerability, it may be instantaneous that you need to patch it. If Cisco, Microsoft, those types of companies actually are able to release it once the 0-day comes out. But patch deployment, so being able to schedule it, make sure that your business can afford to have a patch management schedule and then have some type of resiliency built into it. And then you're nothing without the reporting. So I could sit here and say that I'm patching everything, but without actually some type of audit, I'm not going to be able to say one way or another that I am or not. So patching and reporting sort of go hand in hand. Protection is a big piece out there as well. This can also cost money. There are different ways to go about it. Backing up, to me, backing up is critical. I don't know if everybody's heard of 3-2-1 backup. So 3 copies of data and 3 copies of data in 2 different locations. One being in a remote site, so to speak, is sort of the mantra for enterprise standards. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but it is something that you want to aspire to do. To me, it is, what do we need to back up? How do we need to back up? What is the frequency of the backup? So those are big questions that need to be asked, and they do have dollar consequences. So a backup technology, you can find them out there for any price point, but they do have a cost to them. So you have to always think about, can my business afford it? Anti-malware, antivirus, pretty much the same thing, but you need to make sure that you have them. If you don't have them, you're in a critical risk area. You need to make sure that you're doing something about having viruses or malware. And I'd go even a step further and say anti-spam. So when you get email out there, anti-spam is phishing attacks, spam attacks can clog up your inbox. If you have your own Exchange servers or your own email servers, it can wreak havoc on you. So lots and lots of different things from that. Passwords. Do you have a password policy? Are you actually updating your passwords? What does the complexity of your password look like? Do you have different complexities for your admins versus a normal user? So if somebody has access to your Office 365, if you're using Office 365 or G Suite out there, do the admins have different complexities and lengths for the actual passwords? Are you thinking about multi-factor authentication? I use multi-factor authentication. Aureon uses multi-factor authentication. It does take a little bit extra time to log into your endpoints or to log into your email, but banks are doing it. I use it on my personal email. I use it on my social media accounts. There's just no reason to not think about using multi-factor authentication. And I say multi-factor, mainly it's 2-factor authentication, but you can add as many layers as you want with multi-factor. So you can go biometrics if you have the ability to read it off of your laptop, or on your iPhone. You can do facial recognition. You can do anything that you really want. It's just about making sure that you feel it's secure and having policies that back that up. Monitoring is going to be critical. Again, this is going to be something that does cost money. Doing deep packet inspection, so you want to create a wall, in my mind, a barrier so that your business is walled off. And those can be firewalls. They're mainly firewalls. They can be routers. But intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, so if somebody's trying to get in through brute force or misformed packets, be able to identify and recognize that. And then also what's coming in, what's going out, deep packet inspection. So the other piece that was a little bit lower in there is depth, or defense in depth is really the big thing here. Making sure that you have a layered approach to how you're trying to wall off your business. So making sure that it has monitoring and you have a password policy, or that you have antivirus and you have password policy. Those types of things are called defense in depth. And to me, it's critical for protection. Excuse me, for protection. Encryption at rest and encryption in motion. Where's your data stored? Do you know? I mean, is it on your phone? Can you access your data on your phone? Do you have a computer that you take, a laptop? Is it on servers? Is it in the cloud? Making sure that you know where your data is, and is it encrypted? So if somebody happens to connect to a public Wi-Fi and another person is adept enough to be able to get in and understand how to tap into your device, is there a way that you can stop that? Or if they get the data, is it encrypted and they can't break that encryption? So think about that from an encryption standpoint. Microsoft offers encryption pretty much native now. And then you can get it, encryption at rest in databases. Microsoft, they do offer it. Oracle offers it. MySQL offers it. So any type of database out there really offers any type of protection from an encryption standpoint. In transit is really about taking it from one location to another, of course, so making sure you see that HTTPS up in your web browser, making sure you see the little lock. There's lots of secure protocols out there that you just want to make sure that you are enabling for your company. How do you access your data? And we've talked a little bit about, over the internet. Is it on a local file share or local storage? So again, just thinking about where your data is, how you're going to access it so that you can, again, figure out the best way to protect your data. Disaster recovery and business continuity. To me, these are critical things that should not be overlooked. I've been in companies where we haven't had them. None existed, or employees didn't know they existed. That's a common theme as to not everybody is privy to disaster recovery. I think it should be shared throughout the organization. I think that anything that can happen to one employee or a group of employees should be known to pretty much everybody. And what is the meaning of a disaster? Is a disaster a single file gone? Is it a multitude of servers? Is it a whole site? Is it the cloud goes away? You need to think about what the meaning of a disaster is. Employees create products and store them out of scope of your DR plans. And so this should be handled in a twofold way. One, you should create a cybersecurity policy, and within there, you should have really defined, here's how we deal with new projects, new products, new services, and make sure that products don't fall outside those lines. So if we're supposed to store all of our data in Google Cloud, and somebody goes and stores it in AWS, well, that doesn't really, we don't have a plan for how we're going to recover that data if Amazon goes down versus Google Cloud. So, and then the last thing is don't go too narrow. In my mind, you don't want to look at it in just one application. You want to look at it across your organization. You want to make sure that you understand what we're trying to do. Reasons why a plan is critical. It costs money to be down. The average data breach costs companies with a DR plan about $4,000 per day. Ones without is closer to $6,000 to $7,000 per day. Hard to put an exact value on the data that you just lost. If you don't know where your data is, if you don't understand the assets that you have, then how can you actually calculate that value? And I talked a little bit about that earlier, which is part of the component of figuring out your total cost for a breach, is understanding what data you have and the cost to it. So what is that cost? Consumers and prospects look for it. Now more and more people are asking for, when you have a vendor, when you're onboarding a vendor, what is your DR plan? What is your BCP plan? What is your cybersecurity policy? Have you had any cyber events or incidents? So to me, customers and prospects look for it. It helps protect your brand. It helps really try to alleviate, it tries to resolve it in as quick as possible. So how, if you have a breach, if you have a disaster, what can you do in order to get back up and running? So do you have a good backup plan? Are you running a hot-cold site? Are you running a hot site? Those types of things are going to be critical. Or can you spin up more services in the cloud? And all of those things allow you to get back up quicker. So if your website is down or data is being destroyed, how are you going to protect yourself and your brand? Mother Nature never waits for anybody, so that's always a concern. Disasters happen. So machines do break. Machines break. Hard drives fail. Fans stop. I will tell you this many, many a times. So always make sure that you have a plan for if a server fails. If one server is your critical backbone, you need to make sure that you diversify yourself. Otherwise, you're in for a world of hurt and concern. The world always is on. So instantaneous, you want to have data now. You want to have the latest information. You want to have everything right at your fingertips at this very moment. Customers want that too. So if you're not able to supply that, if somebody is on your website trying to get at a file and they can't get to it, or if they can't get the information they need from your database, they will go to a competitor. So making sure that you have an always-on mindset is something that is going to be critical, or is critical right now. Compliance and regulations. You may be, and depending upon your business, you may be mandated to actually report if a data breach happens. So think about that. Do you have a plan and strategy for that? That should be part of your incident response plan and your disaster recovery and business continuity plans. Those are critical. Having one saves money. You just heard a little bit about the total dollars. It's about a $2,000 or $3,000 per day difference for having one or not having one. And we are all human. We all make mistakes. If humans were alleviated from this, I don't think we would have data breaches. But again, that's not the way it is. So we do have data breaches, and making sure that we have a plan to counteract that. So just a couple more facts here. According to findings, 76% of companies without a DR or BCP plan had material disruption in business operations. 62% of companies without a DR or BCP involvement said the organization and brand was negatively impacted. So there are many different tools that you can buy for DR. Again, just like other things out there, there are orchestration and automation tools to be able to recover servers, to be able to identify breaches. So think about some of those things as well. Focus on the people. I sort of started talking about this in the secure culture, and I can't stress this enough. People are the key to the puzzle. So if somebody can figure that one out, I think all the software may not be necessary. But people are the targets more than the systems are. You can see that through how they transform a phishing attack to be a very personal message to the employee. I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen lately is, hey, Jack, please take a look at this invoice. This is for X. Please let me know. And you start opening that thing up, and all of a sudden you've got a whole slew of problems on your hand. Technology is not secure. Obviously, through patching, vulnerabilities, software developers are human. So we're always deploying and developing and sharing out new patches, new updates for it, builds a secure environment. To me, having employees understand the critical nature of security awareness is key and integral to anything that you do. So making sure that you have a secure environment can't exclude an employee or a human element. Avoids potential risk. So an employee in the know and aware of cybersecurity risks are going to be much better and hopefully risk adverse to somebody who's not. Not enough time. I've heard this many times. I don't have enough time to train my employees. When you look at the overall costs of data breaches, you definitely want to make sure that you make time for employees. I'm too small. I don't need to be targeted. You know, I've been in companies that have 10 employees or less, and yes, for a time that was probably accurate. Nowadays, everybody's a target. And I think small to medium-sized businesses are more of a target because you have more critical data in single locations. Faith in technology. Well, I'll just buy another firewall. I'll buy another latest and greatest router. I'll buy the newest antivirus. That will save me. Or the overall cost is going to be the inhibitor. Everything beyond the cybersecurity policy and some free antivirus, anti-malware programs out there does cost money. So making sure that you actually have a business plan and objective for how you're going to secure yourself. To me, this starts with a risk management, let's do a risk assessment of whatever we have. And to me, from that risk assessment will come, we need to do X within our organization. That may be email encryption. I need to turn on email encryption, or I need to put up a better firewall. And really trying to develop a strategic plan with business objectives so that there is an ROI on the overall technology spend that you're going to spend. Focusing on the employee. So how do you actually focus on the employee? There's many different ways. Training, I think, is the obvious one. Security awareness. So what is phishing? What is social engineering? Should you connect to that coffee shop's Wi-Fi? Those are all questions that I hope everybody can answer within this room. I won't call on anybody to make sure, but how to educate your employees. So to me, training, is it an annual thing? Is it a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? What is the perfect cadence for your group? It's not always going to be the same. Should you, when you onboard an employee, have some type of training in place? I would say yes. At Aureon, we don't give a person a laptop or a desktop until they've had some type of cybersecurity training. So at least they are indoctrinated enough. So and that plus I actually, the acceptable use policy has also had to be reviewed and read. Are the two things that we do at Aureon. Communication. So, to me, is it an email? Is it a poster? Is it a video? Is it some guy talking about cybersecurity? What are the different ways that you want to communicate out there? To me, 7 times 7 ways, I think, is our strategy at Aureon. So that's big for us. And then test them. We do this internally at Aureon. I've done it at other companies which are smaller just by myself. Set up an account. Do a phishing campaign, send out an email, see who clicks on a link, see if anybody's actually doing what we're trying to tell them not to do. Do tabletop exercises, have conversations like we're having today, bring in speakers, do tests. Those are great ways to make sure that your employees are getting the message. Takeaways today, cyber threats are never going to stop. Data breaches are not slowing down. Newer ways of getting at us are ever increasing. To me, now we're going to the hardware layer versus software or database layer. So that's just taking it to a whole different area. Employees are going to be the key. I think I talked a lot about the employees, and I can't stress that enough. Technology can help, but you shouldn't actually have too much faith in just technology alone. It has to be a marriage of employees and technology to make sure that you have the best chance at data breach security and overall cybersecurity safety. So with that, thank you. Comments and questions?
I have a question. On your acceptable use policies, do you clearly separate business use from personal use?
Yes. Yes, you do. So we talk about what is acceptable business use, and then we also, because employees take their laptops home, I mean, we allow them to go browse on the internet. But you can't start uploading documents to your Google Drive or to other places. And that's where DLP comes into play. So we use technologies that actually deploy. So if you were to take your laptop home, or if you are to sign up for a Google account and an email, and you're trying to send yourself an email with company proprietary information, we would deny that request, or we would do it through technology. So making sure you have a two-pronged approach on that side. DLP is critical for that insider threat, I think, there's no way to stop it 100%. You have to have faith in your employees, but you have to be prepared in case there is a disgruntled employee too. So acceptable use policy and data loss protection are critical. Yes? Mm-hmm.
In their trucks, and
Yep.
is there any way to, I mean, the only way that we know that there's been a problem is when it raises its ugly head. So is there any way that, I mean, basic way that we can prevent them from using it inappropriately or downloading things that they can't do? Is there software we could use, something like that?
Yes. I mean, so you can take away local admin rights on your PCs. So big thing there is don't allow people to download or install software. You can't necessarily stop them from going to different locations by just, without some type of software purchase there. We use a technology that actually is a cloud-based, so we have a remote worker force as well. So I don't know, if they've got the latest information from us, but we have the ability to look at what that person has running on their laptop and be able to block things from here in Iowa. So, but that costs money. The best thing that I would tell you to do is to remove their local admin rights so that they can't actually install anything. That's the most critical thing that you can do there. So. Everybody, normally by default, when Windows is set up, they can install. So you just have to take away that local admin privilege. So that's a good. Happy to help you. Yes.
How safe are all of these different programs that are out there now? QuickBooks. If you're using all of these for your internal use, how safe are they really?
Ask questions. That would be the number one thing that I would say. So when we actually go and talk to Microsoft or to Google, we want to know if they're SOC compliant, if they've had any data breaches. So ask questions about, big enough companies should, but a lot of times do not. So if you read the fine print inside of Microsoft, they don't guarantee that they'll have a backup of the data up in the cloud. So you have to define a backup strategy based upon the contractual obligations that you've signed up for. So it's really about reading the fine print and then asking some very detailed questions. For me, I usually have about 42 different questions that I ask a vendor up front about their cyber stance, and then from there it can dive into different things. So, I mean, it's really, we send it out as a checklist saying, hey, here are 42 different questions I need you to answer about your cybersecurity stance and policy, breaches or non-breaches that you have. So to me, that allows us to at least ask deeper questions about, are you encrypting my financial data at QuickBooks? Are you backing it up, or do I need to back it up? Those are good questions to ask off the top, right away. So it really depends upon the technology, and then really depends upon the company. I can't give you a one way or another answer on that one. It's really about the technology that you're using. So, any other questions? Is everybody a Windows shop here? Yeah. Nobody Linux? You're Linux based? You don't have these many problems, I guess, but they're still out there. They do, okay. So you're more of what, a Red Hat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. So a lot of websites are run, obviously, you probably know that, but a lot of websites are run off of basically the internet, yes, exactly. Any other questions? Does everybody have a cybersecurity policy, or at least talk to employees about cybersecurity training and awareness? I think those are good things to take away then. Awesome.
I'll just volunteer some. We have as you mentioned in the slides, we have an onboarding process so that new employees are oriented and understand our stance on security and the do's and don'ts for the office and
Yep.
for the home equipment if there is some to take home.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have we meet regularly as a security team. So
Do you?
A small group of us meet and talk about what's important now and how can we disseminate it to the employees.
Yep. We have similar process. We meet weekly. We call it the CISO team, so to speak. So Chief Information Security Officer. We don't have one, but we have a group of employees across the business units that meet to talk about, different things that they may be seeing or incidents that may have happened that need to be addressed. So I think that is critical as far as communication. It depends upon the size of your business as to who's in talking, but I mean, to me, you should be talking about security. I think that's, communication is key for anything that you're trying to do, and security is no different. So, all right. I think I'm done then. Well, thank you all very much for coming. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Jack. That was super informative. Just a reminder to fill out the survey sheets on your tables. We'd like to hear your feedback. Just a reminder of a couple upcoming events that we have. This Friday, March 2nd, at the partnership, Whitney Warren with Ivory House will be presenting about her entrepreneurship journey. So feel free to attend that. And we have a regional lunch happening on March 6th. Keeping customers continually infatuated. Gabor George Burt, who's with CI Week, will be presenting that. And we also have our next top 5 will be March 28th, and the topic will be how tax reform will affect you and your business. So